What is happening? And a very warm welcome back to the Physique Formula, the diet series, episode number 3 in the title, as you can see on the screen, is managing the deficit. So, last week's episode we spoke over creating that deficit, different means of creating the deficit, if there's any that are perhaps better, quote unquote, on paper objectively than others. If you haven't watched that, go check it out, let me know your thoughts. As always, I am open to suggestions for topics, and criticism, feedback, etc, etc. So here we have, as I say, managing the deficit. So once that deficit has been created, through the means of increasing expenditure, whether that be in the form of steps, cardio, posing, anything sort of moving about, or also obviously, the simple one, taking away that sort of caloric intake, or taking from that caloric intake, should we say. So, first of all, managing the deficit, it's pretty simple. Here are some little, pointers, kind of baseline guidances, if you like. Losing between 1 and 1.5% of your total body weight per week. But again, this is a rough guidance and a rough guidance only. It's not as if, like, if you lose 0.8% of your body weight per week and you're like, fuck, I look mint, you don't need to go and then push that for that extra next week. You don't necessarily have to push for that. It's just a rough sort of guidance, and these are all sort of rough guidances, and you should also just be going off of the look primarily, realistically, for a lot of cases within a diet. So, and also moving on as well to sort of metabolic adaptations are unavoidable. Realistically, the changes that you make will some way and another catch up to you, and whether that means that you have to increase steps, increase cardio, increase frequency of posing, duration of posing, decrease food, that's super person, individual, context dependent, but realistically it will catch up to you. The metabolic adaptations will take place, and there's nothing you can really do that will have a sufficient sort of impact in slowing that down. Another kind of rule of thumb is being aggressive out the gates, and I'll kind of touch on that a little bit over the course of this sort of episode. And as I said there, like, the bottom line is the look tells the story, and the data just proves it mostly. Sometimes you will have things that like something, you make a change to your diet, let's say for example, and it doesn't really make sense why it's working, but it's working. Realistically, if it's working, it is working, and that's just the bottom line, and that's just what the bottom line is. And most of the time, though, the data will prove what the story is, which obviously the look is going to tell that same story that we're talking about. So, realistically, aggressive out the gates. Why are we actually doing this? It's objectively the best sort of place to be aggressive. You are high energy, you are the freshest, this is the least fatigued you're going to be, and essentially this is all, you're primed to be in a deficit. But obviously this is dependent on whether you've done like a deload pre-diet, and I wouldn't just sort of transcend from gaining, like peak gaining phase, you're absolutely fucking wrecked, just straight into a diet, because realistically that's not really the best environment for fat loss. Looking to kind of take like a little bit of a deload, freshen yourself up, and again, being aggressive out the gates, because realistically that is objectively, as I say, when your body's almost primed to create that deficit. You've got the highest energy, you've got the highest body fat on you, the risk of muscle loss is like fucking minimal. You're freshest, you just feel that little bit better, and ultimately when you are fresher as well, I often notice as well, like, even you'll probably notice this yourself as well, you'll get more expenditure subconsciously from your NEAT, from stuff like steps, because you do generally have more of a spring in your step. And that's not me saying like actually bouncing about like a physical spring in your step, it's just you're not dragging your ass, and when you're not dragging your ass, you're going to be expending more calories. And that's another thing as well to kind of touch on, when you are doing steps, not to say you're stepping like you're fucking marching, but don't be dragging your ass realistically, because there is going to be a difference in expenditure if you're dragging your ass with your steps in comparison to, you know, stepping with, you know, some sort of, you know, drive. The words kind of escaped me, to be honest, but stepping with a purpose is the phrase I'm kind of looking for. And as well, obviously, you should be the least fatigued, because there's no real, you know, fatigue from the diet built up because you're just fresh into the diet. Pretty simple from that sort of standpoint. Now, when it comes to, you know, your body has, you know, adapted, the metabolic adaptations have taken place, your body's adapted to the new environment that you have created via the deficit. Like, realistically, your body will catch up, and what this does look like is not getting leaner first and foremost, not just a case of the scale weight stalling, because obviously the scale weight can stall due to other factors, you know, i.e. Fatigue sort of blurring that, and obviously that's when you can look to introduce things like refeeds, de-output days and stuff to kind of flush off fatigue, because at the end of the day, fatigue can mask fat loss. And again, this is kind of one of the benefits of having a coach, because when you do see fatigue, well, when you see what you think is your progress, or you're stalling within your process, that can often be fatigue masking fat loss. And when you are, you know, acting emotionally upon this, that can obviously, you know, have detrimental impact on your process. So that's again another, you know, benefit of not even maybe just having a coach, but having a second eye on your process as well. But as we obviously all know, fatigue can obviously mask the fat loss that's taking place in the form of, you know, the visuals looking that little bit blurrier almost, and also obviously scale weight stalls as well. But yeah, this is what it looks like when you're obviously stalling. It's pretty simple. You're not getting leaner, scale weight is stalling. Your body has adapted. That's what's happened. Your body has adapted to those changes that you've made via obviously increasing expenditure or decreasing food. You realistically have to create the deficit all over again, and realistically, whether you choose to go for more steps, more cardio, more posing, or less food, is, you know, it's completely person situation dependent, dependent on a million and one different things. So this is, I'm not going to even really try and give a general rule of thumb, because it's really individualized. I could say, oh, more steps, because realistically, like on paper, you can take steps for an example and go, well, it's super low impact, it's super low fatigue, but you can only then do, on the flip side, you can only do so much steps before it's having some sort of detrimental impact to, you know, the amount of time that you take in a day, doing upwards of 17,500 for example, and also it's going to eventually have some sort of, you know, detrimental impact to just build up of fluid, build up with that sort of water retention, fatigue in your legs, and again, which can obviously have detrimental impact on visuals, detrimental impact on training, etc, etc. So again, kind of no real rules of thumb there, because again, it's super individual, super individualized. But that is managing the deficit. The diet series episode 3 wrapped up. Trying to keep these videos a little bit just around about that 10-minute mark, sub 10 minutes when possible, just kind of deep diving in, and then getting out, simple as that. But as always, I hope you enjoyed, I hope you took something from this as well, and obviously, you know, any feedback, you know, thoughts on the videos are always greatly appreciated. And until the next one, until episode number 4, I will speak to you soon. Goodbye.